Daniel was stacking breakfast plates when he heard the guest room door open. She stepped out, hair tangled, barefoot, wearing his old blue flannel, the one he'd been meaning to throw away for 3 months. Emma looked up from her cereal bowl and asked, "Dad, why is she wearing your shirt?" Daniel didn't answer right away. He looked at the woman, eyes swollen, lips cracked, arms wrapped around herself. She looked around the room, then at him. "Where am I?" He set the water glass down on the table, exhaled. "Clintonville. My house. You're safe." She stared at him in a way that made him think. She didn't remember last night, and he didn't know where to start explaining. The woman's fingers went to her temples. Daniel watched her piece it together. The unfamiliar kitchen, the child at the table, the oversized shirt hanging past her knees. Her makeup had smudged into dark circles under her eyes. There was a cut on her palm, small but fresh. "I don't..." She stopped, swallowed. "What happened?" Emma tilted her head, spoon halfway to her mouth. Daniel could see his daughter doing the math. Strange woman, Dad's shirt, morning. He needed to get ahead of this. "Found you on Doddridge Street last night," he said. "Around 10. You weren't in good shape." The woman's hand dropped from her face. "Doddridge?" Her voice cracked on the word. "Few blocks from here. Your car was still running. Door open." Daniel moved to the coffee maker, poured a cup without asking if she wanted it. "Couldn't leave you there." She took the mug when he offered it. Her hands shook slightly. "Did you?" "No." He kept his voice level. "You were sick. I put you in the guest room, that's all." The silence stretched. Emma went back to her cereal, but Daniel knew she was listening. She always listened. "Your clothes are in the dryer," he added. "Should be done in 20 minutes." The woman sat down slowly, like her legs might give out. She wrapped both hands around the mug but didn't drink. Daniel noticed her nails, professionally done, chipped now at the edges. "I'm Claire," she said it quietly, not looking at him. "Daniel." "This is Emma." He nodded toward his daughter. Emma waved with her spoon. "Hi, you look like the lady on the billboard downtown, the one with the big building." Claire's eyes closed briefly. When they opened, something had shifted in her expression. Recognition, maybe, or dread. "Yeah," she said. "That's me." Daniel had seen the billboard. Vantage AI. The tech company that had taken over 3 floors of the old Huntington building. He hadn't connected it until now. "You're the CEO," he said. It wasn't a question. Claire's laugh came out bitter. "For now." Emma looked between them, sensing something she couldn't quite name. "Are you okay?" The question was so direct, so Emma, that Claire seemed to flinch. She looked at his daughter, really looked at her, for the first time. "I don't know," Claire said. "I had a really bad day yesterday." "Dad says bad days end," Emma offered. "That's why they're called days." Daniel met Claire's eyes over Emma's head. Saw something crack there. Not breaking, just the first hairline fracture in whatever wall she'd built. "Your dad sounds smart," Claire managed. "He fixes things." Emma finished her cereal, carried the bowl to the sink with careful hands. "Can you stay for pancakes?" Daniel started. "It's okay," Claire interrupted. "I should go. I need to find my car, my phone." She stood, steadier now. "I need to..." She stopped. Looked down at the flannel shirt, the bare legs underneath. "I need to get dressed." Daniel showed her to the guest room, pointed to where he'd folded her clothes on the chair. The suit was expensive. He could tell from the fabric, even wrinkled. Navy blue, tailored. The kind of thing you wore when you needed armor. "Take your time," he said. When she came out 15 minutes later, she looked more like the billboard. Hair pulled back, makeup wiped clean, suit smoothed as much as possible. But something in her eyes was still raw. Emma had already left for the bathroom to brush her teeth. Daniel could hear the water running upstairs. "Thank you," Claire said. She held out his flannel, neatly folded. "For this. For last night." He took it. "Sure. I mean it." Her voice was firmer now. "You didn't have to help me. Most people wouldn't have." Daniel thought about that. About the version of last night where he'd kept driving, where he'd called 911 instead, where he'd made it someone else's problem. "Emma asks me all the time," he said. "Why do people do that? Why do people act certain ways?" He set the flannel on the counter. "I want her to grow up seeing people help each other, even strangers." Claire's throat moved. She nodded once, sharp, like she didn't trust herself to speak. "I'll drive you to your car," Daniel said. They took his truck, a Ford with primer spots and a check engine light that had been on for 6 months. Emma climbed into the back seat without being asked, buckled herself in. Daniel caught Claire watching his daughter in the side mirror as they pulled out. Doddridge Street looked different in daylight. Claire's Audi was still there, parked at an angle with 2 wheels on the curb. A parking ticket flapped under the wiper. "Perfect," Claire muttered. Daniel pulled up behind it. Emma unbuckled, leaned forward between the seats. "Miss Claire." She held out a piece of paper, one of her drawings. A rainbow, bright and crooked, over a dark sky. "Dad says rainbows mean things get better." Claire took the drawing like it was made of glass. Her fingers trembled at the edges. "Thank you, Emma." Her voice barely held. "I'll keep this." They watched her walk to her car, unlock it, slide behind the wheel. She sat there for a long moment before starting the engine. When she pulled away, she didn't look back. Emma clicked her seatbelt. "Is she going to be okay?" Daniel put the truck in gear. "I don't know, kiddo." "You helped her, though." "Yeah, that's good." Emma settled back. Even if she's sad, at least she knows someone cared. Daniel drove home thinking about that, about the weight of caring, about the woman in the expensive suit who'd woken up wearing his old flannel, who'd looked at his daughter like she'd forgotten what kindness looked like. He thought about it all week. 7 days later, Claire came back. Daniel was under the Johnsons' kitchen sink, replacing a corroded valve, when Tony called down that someone was asking for him. He slid out, wiped his hands on his work pants, and found her standing in the Johnsons' driveway. She looked different, put together. Hair perfect, suit pressed, but her hands were clasped tight in front of her. "Hi," she said. "Hi. I'm sorry to just show up. I called your company. They said you were here." Daniel waited. Behind him, he could hear Tony making small talk with Mrs. Johnson about water pressure, buying him time. "I need to ask you something," Claire said. "And I know how this sounds. I know it's strange." She took a breath. "I need your help." She told him about the board meeting, about the vote to remove her as CEO, about the CFO who'd embezzled, and the FBI investigation, and the lawyer who'd suggested, carefully, professionally, that a character witness might help her case. "Someone credible," she said. "Someone who doesn't work for me. Someone who saw me at my worst and can speak to." She stopped. Started again. "You saw me that night. You saw everything I was trying to hide from everyone else, and you didn't." Her voice caught. "You didn't use it against me." Daniel leaned against his truck. "You want me to testify?" "Not testify. Just talk to the board. Tell them what you told me. About helping people. About..." She reached into her bag, pulled out an envelope. "I know I'm asking a lot. I can pay you for your time." He didn't take the envelope. "How much?" $5,000. The number hung between them. Daniel thought about Emma's dental bill, about the truck's transmission, about the rent increase he'd gotten last month. "I can't take that," he said. Claire's face fell. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have..." "Not because I don't need it." He met her eyes. "Because if I take money, they won't believe me. They'll think I'm just saying what you paid me to say. Then why? I'll do it, Daniel said. But not for money. Why? He thought about Emma's question. Why do people do that? Because you're asking me to tell the truth, he said. And the truth is, you were in a bad place that night. But you weren't mean. You weren't entitled. You said thank you. You talked to my kid like she mattered. He pushed off the truck. If someone like that is in trouble, and I can help by just being honest, yeah, I'll do that. Claire's eyes were bright. She blinked rapidly. Okay, she said. Okay. The boardroom was on the 12th floor of a building Daniel had driven past 1,000 times, but never entered. Glass and steel, views of downtown Columbus spreading out in every direction. The receptionist had looked at his khakis and button-down, his good clothes, the ones he wore to Emma's school events, like he'd walked in off the street selling something. Which, in a way, he had. There were 8 people around the table when Claire let him in, all of them older than him, all of them in suits that cost more than his monthly rent. He recognized the look they gave him, the same one he got sometimes on service calls to expensive houses, the look that said, "You're here to fix something, not to talk." Claire sat at the head of the table. There was an empty chair beside her, and she gestured to it. Daniel sat. "This is Daniel Carson," she said. Her voice was different here, harder, professional. "He's agreed to speak with the board regarding my character." A woman at the far end, silver hair, perfect posture, glasses on a chain, leaned forward. "Mr. Carson." Her name placard read, Margaret Whitmore, board chair. "Thank you for coming. We understand you have information regarding Ms. Brennan?" Daniel cleared his throat. "Yes, ma'am." "Please proceed." He hadn't prepared a speech. Claire had told him not to. "Just tell them what happened," she'd said. "Be yourself." So he did. 3 weeks ago, he started. I found Ms. Brennan on Doddridge Street, around 10 at night. She was sitting on the curb. Her car was still running, door open. She wasn't. He paused, choosing words. She wasn't in good shape. The board members were watching him. A few exchanged glances. "I didn't know who she was," Daniel continued. "I just saw someone who needed help. So I helped, took her to my house, let her sleep in my guest room. Made sure she was safe." "And she compensated you for this?" Margaret asked. "She tried." I said no. "Why?" Daniel looked at Claire. She was staring at the table, jaw tight. "Because doing the right thing isn't supposed to cost someone money," he said. "And because taking payment would make this something it's not." A man halfway down the table, Stephen, Claire had told him in the elevator, spoke up. "Mr. Carson, what you did was admirable. But we're trying to determine Ms. Brennan's fitness to lead this company. I'm not sure how one night of kindness speaks to that." Daniel turned to face him. "The next morning, she met my daughter, 8 years old. Emma asked her why she was there. Ms. Brennan could have lied, could have made up something comfortable. Instead, she told my kid the truth. Said she'd had a bad day and made bad choices." He paused. The room was quiet. "My daughter said, 'Dad says when you make bad choices, you say sorry and do better tomorrow.' And you know what Ms. Brennan did? She didn't brush it off. She didn't talk down to an 8-year-old. She listened. She said, 'Your dad sounds smart.'" Margaret Whitmore's expression hadn't changed. "Mr. Carson, I'm not done." The words came out sharper than he'd intended. Daniel took a breath. "I fix air conditioners and furnaces for a living. Before that, I was a mechanical engineer in Detroit. Worked on automotive systems until the plant closed. Lost my job, my wife left, and I moved here to start over." He saw surprise flicker across a few faces. "I know what it's like to lose everything," Daniel said. "I know what rock bottom looks like. And I know the difference between someone who's given up and someone who's just trying to survive the bad day." He looked at Claire. She was looking at him now, eyes wide. Miss Brennan is surviving, he said. Maybe not perfectly. Maybe not the way you think a CEO should. But she's still here, still fighting. And when someone showed her kindness, a stranger, a nobody, she didn't forget it. She came back, not to buy me off, to ask me to tell the truth. The room was silent for a long moment. Stephen Callahan leaned back in his chair. Margaret, I'd like to say something. Go ahead. I've known Claire for 10 years, Stephen said, looking around the table. I watched her build this company from a garage startup to an $800 million valuation. I've seen her make tough calls, navigate crises, lead through uncertainty. He turned to Claire. The CFO situation was a betrayal, not your fault. But when I voted to remove you, it wasn't because of that. It was because I thought you'd lost your edge, that the pressure had broken something. Stephen looked at Daniel. Hearing this man, someone with no stake in our company, no reason to lie, I realize I was wrong. You didn't lose your edge, Claire. You lost your support system. And instead of asking for help, you tried to carry everything alone. He straightened. I'm changing my vote. Claire stays. Margaret's jaw tightened. Stephen. She made a mistake, Stephen interrupted. One night. One bad decision. But she also did something right. She asked for help. Not from a PR firm or a lawyer trying to spin this. From someone who saw her at her worst and still thought she was worth defending. Another board member, a younger man, mid-40s, nodded slowly. I agree. We've been so focused on the optics, we forgot to look at the person. Margaret removed her glasses. This is highly irregular. So is trying to remove a CEO over a bad night, Stephen countered. The vote took 20 minutes. Daniel sat there while they debated, argued, dissected. Claire's face was unreadable. When Margaret finally called for the vote, 5 hands went up to keep Claire as CEO. 3 voted to remove her. Motion fails, Margaret said, her voice clipped. Ms. Brennan retains her position as CEO. She turned to Claire. With conditions. You'll work with a COO appointed by this board. You'll attend quarterly leadership reviews. And you'll implement the governance reforms we discussed last month. Claire nodded. Understood. Meeting adjourned. The parking garage was cold and echoing. Daniel's footsteps sounded too loud on the concrete. He'd made it halfway to the exit when Claire caught up with him. Daniel. He turned. She was walking fast, heels clicking. Thank you, she said, slightly breathless. I don't know how to... I can't... She stopped, started over. You saved me. Again. You saved yourself, Daniel said. I just told the truth. You did more than that. Claire's voice was thick. You believed in me when I'd stopped believing in myself. They stood there in the dim garage light. Daniel could see the exhaustion in her face, the weight of the last few weeks. What you said, Claire continued, about rock bottom, about surviving. She looked down. No one's ever... Her breath hitched. Everyone sees the CEO, the success story. No one sees the person who wakes up at 3 a.m. afraid she's a fraud. Daniel understood that. The 3 a.m. fear, the weight of trying to be enough. You're not a fraud, he said quietly. How do you know? Because a fraud wouldn't have come back, wouldn't have asked for help, wouldn't have sat in that boardroom knowing they might say no anyway. He met her eyes. You're just a person who had a bad day, and bad days end. Claire's laugh was watery. Your daughter said that. She's smarter than me. The silence settled, but it was different now, comfortable. I meant what I said in there, Claire told him, about the payment, not for testifying. You were right about that. But there has to be something I can do. To thank you properly. Daniel thought about it, about Emma, about the dreams she was starting to have, about the art class at the rec center that he couldn't quite afford. There might be, he said. 2 weeks later, the letter came. Daniel opened it standing in his kitchen. Emma doing homework at the table behind him. The letterhead was embossed, professional. The Carson Arts Scholarship Fund, established through the Columbus Foundation. He read it twice before he understood. "Emma," he said slowly, "come here." She slid off her chair, came to stand beside him. He showed her the letter. "What's this?" she asked. "It's a scholarship. For kids who want to study art. Kids whose parents work in trades. Construction, mechanical work, things like that." He swallowed. "It's named after you." Emma's eyes went wide. "After me?" "Ms. Claire set it up. Says here it'll fund art classes, supplies, museum trips, for kids in Columbus who couldn't afford it otherwise." Emma read the letter, lips moving. When she looked up, her face was serious in that way that meant she was thinking hard. "Dad? Is this because you helped her?" "Yeah, but you didn't want money." "This isn't money for me," Daniel said. "It's for other kids. Kids like you, who love art, but whose parents have to worry about bills first." Emma was quiet for a moment. Then, "Did you know she was going to do this?" "No." "She didn't ask you first?" "No." Emma nodded, satisfied. "That's good. It means she wanted to do it. Not because she had to." She looked at the letter again. "Can I write her a thank you note?" Daniel's throat tightened. "Yeah, kiddo. I think she'd like that." That night, after Emma was asleep, Daniel texted the number Claire had given him. Just, "Thank you." Her response came 5 minutes later. "You taught me something. Helping isn't about fixing people. It's about seeing them. I want to see more kids like Emma. This is me paying it forward." He stared at the message for a long time before responding. "She wants to write you a thank you note." The reply was immediate. "I'd love that." "And Daniel, how's the truck?" He smiled. "Still broken." The 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, "There's a mechanic on 5th Street. Tony Martinez recommended him. Tell him I sent you. He owes me a favor." Daniel frowned. Tony was his boss. How did Claire? His phone buzzed again. "I called him after the board meeting. Wanted to know more about the man who'd saved me. He told me about giving you a second chance 5 years ago. Said you were the best hire he'd ever made." Daniel sat back against the couch, closed his eyes. Another message. Sometimes the people we think we're helping are the ones helping us. "Sleep well, Daniel." He didn't respond, didn't know what to say to that. But he saved the message. 3 months later, Emma got sick. It started with a cough. By the 3rd day, she was running a fever that wouldn't break. Daniel took her to urgent care, then to the ER when her oxygen levels dropped. "Pneumonia," the doctor said. "Bacterial. She'd need to stay for a few days." Daniel called in sick to work, spent his days in the uncomfortable hospital chair beside Emma's bed, and his nights lying awake, listening to the monitor's beep. On the 4th day, Claire walked in. Daniel looked up from his phone. He'd been checking his bank balance, trying to figure out how he'd cover the copays. And there she was, holding a bag from the art supply store downtown. "Hi," she said softly. Emma's eyes lit up. "Rainbow Lady," Claire smiled. It looked almost natural now. She'd been texting Daniel occasionally over the past few months. Small things, updates on the company, questions about Emma's art. The kind of conversation that happened between people who'd seen each other at their worst and decided to stay anyway. "Hi, Emma." Claire pulled up the other chair, sat down. "I heard you weren't feeling great." "I have pneumonia," Emma said, proud of the big word. "But Dad says I'll be okay." "Your dad's usually right about these things." Claire set the bag on the bed. "I brought you something, for when you're feeling better." Emma opened it carefully. Inside, a professional sketch pad. Charcoal pencils, pastels, brushes. The kind of supplies Daniel couldn't afford. "Wow," Emma breathed. "There's also this." Claire pulled out a brochure. The Columbus Museum of Art has a weekend class for kids. 8 weeks. They teach drawing, painting, sculpture. I thought, if your dad says it's okay, you might like to go. Emma looked at Daniel, hope blazing in her face. Claire, Daniel started. I can't. It's covered, Claire said quickly. Through the scholarship fund. Emma qualifies. She met his eyes. I'm not overstepping. I checked with the fund administrator. She's eligible. Daniel wanted to argue, wanted to say this was too much, that he could handle it himself. But Emma was clutching the brochure, and he'd seen the enrollment fee on the museum's website. $300 he didn't have. Okay, he said quietly. Thank you. Claire's shoulders relaxed. You're welcome. She stayed for an hour, talked to Emma about art, about what she wanted to draw when she got home. When Emma dozed off mid-sentence, Claire stood to leave. Daniel walked her to the elevator. How'd you know? He asked. About Emma being sick. Tony mentioned it when I called to check on some work at the office building. Claire pushed the down button. I hope it's okay that I came. It's okay. He meant it. The elevator arrived. Claire stepped in, then turned to face him. I quit, she said. Daniel blinked. What? I'm stepping down as CEO, not because the board wants me to, because I want to. The doors started to close. She held them open. I've been working 90-hour weeks for 10 years, trying to prove I could do it alone. That I didn't need anyone. Claire, that night you found me, I'd just left a board meeting where my best friend told them I was unfit to lead. I drove to a bar, drank too much, and She stopped. I was going to drive home anyway. If you hadn't found me, I might have killed someone, or myself. Daniel's chest tightened. You gave me a second chance, Claire said. Not just that night. Every day. After. You showed me what it looks like to build a life around the people who matter, instead of the things that don't. The elevator alarm started beeping. She released the door. I'm starting a nonprofit, she said as the doors began to close. Second Chances Initiative, helping working parents who've hit rock bottom. I wondered if you'd want to be on the advisory board. The door shut before he could answer. 6 months later, Daniel stood in the Columbus Museum of Art, wearing the same suit he'd worn to the board meeting, watching parents and kids mill around the gallery. Emma's painting hung on the wall with 20 others from her class. She'd titled it, When Strangers Become Family. 2 figures stood under rain, holding an umbrella over each other's heads. A rainbow arced above them. It wasn't technically perfect. The proportions were off. The colors sometimes bled together. But it was beautiful in the way only honest things could be. Dad. Emma tugged his sleeve. She was wearing the dress Claire had sent last week, pale blue, with paint stains already on the hem. Miss Claire's here. He turned. Claire was standing by the entrance, talking to a woman he didn't recognize. She saw him looking and waved. The woman with her, shorter, warmer. With Claire's eyes, waved too. That's my sister Rachel, Claire said when they walked over. She flew in from Portland. Rachel shook Daniel's hand. I've heard a lot about you. Probably not all true, Daniel said. Probably all true, Rachel corrected, smiling. Then to Emma. Which one's yours? Emma led them to her painting. Claire stopped in front of it, went very still. Emma, she said after a moment, this is beautiful. It's you and Dad, Emma explained, from the story he told me, about the night he found you. I see that. Claire's voice was soft. Rachel leaned in to read the title. When Strangers Become Family. She looked at Claire, something passing between them that Daniel couldn't read. Yeah, that's exactly right. They spent an hour looking at the other paintings, Emma introducing them to her classmates, Daniel making small talk with other parents. It felt normal. It felt right. When the crowd started thinning, Claire pulled Daniel aside. The nonprofit launches next month, she said. I know you said you'd think about the advisory board position. I'm still thinking. Think faster, she smiled. I need someone who actually knows what it's like to rebuild from nothing. Someone who won't let me turn this into another corporate project. Daniel considered her. The woman he'd found on a curb 6 months ago was still there. He could see her in the careful way Claire held herself, the slight fear in her eyes. But something else had grown around that fear, something steadier. Okay, he said. Okay? Yeah, I'll do it. Claire's smile was real this time. Full. Thank you. On one condition. What's that? You keep showing up for Emma's showcases. She's got 3 more this year. Deal. Claire held out her hand. Daniel shook it. Emma bounded back over, pulling Rachel behind her. Can we get ice cream? Miss Claire said there's a place near here. Claire looked at Daniel. He looked at his watch. Almost 7. He'd have to get Emma home soon, make sure she took her medicine, get her ready for school tomorrow, all the normal things that made up a life. Yeah, he said, we can get ice cream. They walked out together, Daniel and Emma, Claire and Rachel. In the museum window, their reflections moved like a family. Not the one Daniel had planned, not the one Claire had expected, but the one they'd built anyway, out of bad nights and second chances, and the kind of kindness that didn't ask for anything back. Emma skipped ahead, Rachel beside her, and Claire fell into step with Daniel. She still asks, he said. Emma, why do people do that? Every time someone's kind, every time someone's cruel. What do you tell her? That everyone's fighting something you can't see, and sometimes the smallest kindness is the biggest difference. Claire was quiet for a block. Then, you changed my life. You changed how Emma sees the world, Daniel countered. That's bigger. They reached the ice cream shop. Through the window, Emma was already pressed against the glass case, pointing at flavors. Thank you, Claire said, for not driving past me that night. Daniel held the door open. Thank you for coming back. Inside, Emma had chosen rainbow sherbet. Of course she had. They sat at a small table, Emma between them, talking about her next art project, while ice cream dripped down her cone. Claire listened like it mattered. Rachel asked questions, and Daniel watched his daughter, bright and alive and surrounded by people who saw her, and thought about that night 6 months ago, about the woman on the curb who'd needed help, about the choice to stop instead of drive past, about all the tiny decisions that had led them here. Emma looked up at him, rainbow sherbet on her nose. Dad, are you okay? He wiped her face with a napkin. Yeah, kiddo. I'm good. And for the first time in 5 years, since the plant closed, since Melissa left, since he'd loaded everything he owned into a truck and driven to Ohio with a 3-year-old in the back seat, he meant it. The rain had stopped. The rainbow had come, and they were still here, together, building something new out of the pieces of everything they'd lost. That was enough. That was everything.